It was 7:15 a.m. in Nashville when I opened the email that shattered my world. My 1-year-old daughter, Emma, was babbling happily in her high chair, completely unaware that her father had just blown up our lives with a single message. The subject line read simply, "Moving on." I almost spilled my coffee when I opened the attachment and saw the photo. Donald, my husband of 5 years, wrapped around a young blonde woman who couldn't have been older than 23. They were standing in front of our lake house, our vacation home that we'd bought just last year, the same home where we'd spent countless weekends planning our future together. "The house is mine now," the email declared. "I've already moved in with Amber. My lawyer will be sending over the divorce papers. Don't bother fighting it. The deed is in my name." I felt my hands trembling as I set down my coffee mug, but not from fear. No, this was pure rage building inside me. Donald really thought he could just email me divorce papers and steal our vacation home? The home I'd paid for with profits from my business? He had no idea what was coming. I looked at our daughter, still innocent and happy, playing with her breakfast. Then I glanced at the framed photo on our kitchen wall, Donald and me on our wedding day, both smiling like we had the world figured out. 5 years of marriage, and this was how he chose to end it? With a smug email and a photo of himself with a woman nearly half my age? I took a deep breath and picked up my phone. My finger hovered over Donald's contact information for a moment before I clicked block. Then I opened my email and typed 2 simple sentences in reply. "Are you sure about that? Better check the paperwork carefully." I hit send, blocked his email, and turned back to my daughter with a smile. Donald had always underestimated me. He saw me as the accommodating wife who'd supported his career while building my own business on the side. He probably thought I'd break down crying, maybe beg him to reconsider. But he'd forgotten one crucial detail about me. I didn't build a successful company by being naive about protecting my assets. Looking back, I should have seen this coming. The signs were there, little red flags I dismissed because I was too busy juggling my growing business and our new baby. Donald had been making frequent business trips to the lake house over the past 3 months, claiming he needed peace and quiet to work on some big corporate merger. I'd built my company from scratch while supporting his career moves. When we met 6 years ago, I was already running a successful online retail business, but Donald acted like it was just a cute hobby. He loved telling people how he'd helped me turn it into something real. The truth? My business had tripled in value since we married, all through my own hard work and strategic planning. The lake house had been my idea, a perfect getaway for our family, close enough to Nashville for weekend trips, but far enough to feel like a real escape. I'd paid for it entirely with my company's profits, but Donald had insisted on putting his name on the deed. "For tax purposes," he'd said. I'd agreed, but not before having my lawyer draft some very specific documents about the property's true ownership. Last week, Donald had been especially distant, spending hours on his phone in our home office. When I'd asked about the merger, he'd gotten defensive, snapping that I wouldn't understand the complexities of corporate finance. Rich, coming from a man whose investment portfolio I'd secretly been managing for the past 3 years. I picked up Emma from her high chair and held her close, breathing in her sweet baby scent. She had Donald's eyes, but my determination, I could already see it in the way she tackled every new challenge. Looking at her now, my resolve strengthened. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about protecting her future, too. I walked to my home office, Emma on my hip, and opened my laptop. Within minutes, I'd emailed my lawyer the documentation proving I'd purchased the lake house. Then I pulled up the security camera feed I'd had installed at the property, another precaution Donald knew nothing about. The cameras had caught everything, every visit, every guest, every betrayal. Amber might have been basking in her victory at the lake house, but she had no idea she was starring in a video that would feature prominently in my divorce proceedings. My phone buzzed, a text from Rachel, my assistant. "Julia, you need to see this." Attached was a link to Amber's Instagram profile. There, going back months, were dozens of photos of her with Donald. Some were even taken in our bedroom at the lake house, with her wearing my clothes, using my things. The latest post showed her flashing a massive diamond ring, my grandmother's ring. the one Donald had promised we'd give to Emma on her 18th birthday. I felt sick. This wasn't a recent affair. This had been going on since before Emma's birth. In one photo from 8 months ago, Amber was proudly holding up a key to the lake house, caption reading, "Home sweet home with my love heart eyes, new chapter moving in together." While I was up all night with our newborn, Donald had been playing house with a woman barely out of college. The dates on the photos matched perfectly with his business trips. Every time he'd said he was working late, every weekend he'd claimed he needed to check on the lake house. It had all been lies. My hands shaking, I opened my banking app. That's when the second blow hit. The joint account where I deposited money for Emma's college fund was empty. Every penny, nearly $100,000, gone. Transferred out yesterday to an account I didn't recognize. The rage I'd felt earlier transformed into something cold and calculating. I called my bank immediately, then my lawyer. Within an hour, I had confirmation. Donald had been systematically moving money around for months, preparing for this moment. He'd even tried to access my business accounts but failed. Those, at least, were protected by ironclad contracts and separate banking arrangements. Rachel called while I was on the phone with the lawyers. "Julia, there's more." She sent me a series of screenshots from Amber's private Facebook page. The girl had been bragging to her friends about landing a rich older man, and how they'd planned to take his boring wife for everything she was worth. There were even messages joking about how oblivious I was, too busy with my little online shop to notice what was happening. Little did they know, that little online shop had made me a millionaire 3 times over. I'd kept that information private, letting Donald believe my business was merely successful, not wildly profitable. His ego had never allowed him to really look at my company's books, to understand exactly what I'd built. I looked at Emma, now napping peacefully in her playpen. "Don't worry, baby girl," I whispered. "Mommy's about to teach Daddy a lesson about underestimating women in business." I spent the next few hours in a flurry of activity. My lawyer, Sarah, arrived at my house just before noon. As we sat in my home office reviewing documents, Emma napped upstairs with Rachel keeping watch. I'd hired extra security for the house. Something told me Donald wouldn't take my email response well. "He's not as clever as he thinks," Sarah said, examining the lake house documentation. "The deed may be in his name, but we have ironclad proof that your business funds purchased the property. The transfer records, the contracts, even the emails where he admits it was your money. It's all here." I nodded, pulling up the security camera feeds on my laptop. "There's more. Look at this." The footage showed Donald and Amber entering the lake house at various times over the past months. But what really interested Sarah was the footage from 2 days ago. It showed Donald carrying box after box of items from the house, including several pieces of art I'd purchased with my company profits. "That's attempted theft of business assets," Sarah said, making notes. "The art collection was purchased through your company for tax purposes. We have the documentation." Just then, my phone lit up with a call from an unknown number. I put it on speaker. "You think you're so smart, don't you?" Donald's voice was sharp, angry. "Check your business email, Julia. My lawyers have been busy too." I pulled up my email and felt my stomach drop. Donald's lawyers had filed an emergency petition claiming my business had been built using his expertise and connections. They were demanding a full audit and temporary control of my company's accounts during the divorce proceedings. "You'd really try to take my company?" I kept my voice steady despite my racing heart. "The company I built before I even met you?" "You built?" He laughed coldly. "Who do you think gave you all these corporate contacts? Who introduced you to the right people? Face it, Julia, you'd be nothing without me. Amber understands that. She knows how to be grateful." I muted the phone and turned to Sarah, who was already typing furiously on her laptop. She held up a finger. "Wait." "Donald," I unmuted the phone, buying time. "Think carefully about what you're doing." "Oh, I have. My lawyers will be in touch about Emma, too. You're too busy with your precious business to be a proper mother. Amber's great with kids. She used to be a nanny." The threat to take Emma made my blood run cold, but before I could respond, Sarah slid her laptop over to me. On the screen was an email from 3 years ago, one Donald had sent to a friend, complaining about my success. She won't listen to my business advice at all, says she doesn't need my help. And she's right, her company's worth more than my annual salary now. It's embarrassing. I smiled into the phone. Donald, I just sent something to your lawyer. You might want to check with him before making any more threats about my company. What are you talking about? Let's just say your email archives aren't as private as you thought. Call off your lawyers, or the next email I send will be to your boss. I wonder how he'd feel about all those corporate contacts you claim to have given me? The line went silent. Then, click. Sarah was still combing through Donald's emails when Rachel burst into the office, her face pale. Julia, you need to see this right now. She thrust her tablet in front of me. On the screen was a draft press release from Donald's company announcing his promotion to Chief Financial Officer, effective next month. Suddenly, everything clicked into place. The timing of his affair with Amber, the calculated moves with our accounts, the aggressive legal strategy. It wasn't just about leaving me. He was cleaning house before his big promotion, trying to secure assets and minimize what he'd lose in the divorce. There's more. Rachel swiped to another document. Amber isn't just some random girlfriend, she's the CEO's niece. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. Donald hadn't fallen in love with a younger woman. He'd orchestrated a relationship with the CEO's niece to secure his promotion. The lake house, the stolen money, even the threats about Emma. It was all part of his plan to start his new life as CFO with his perfect, well-connected young wife. Sarah looked up from her laptop. Julia, I found something else. The company merger Donald's been working on? It involves one of your biggest business competitors. If he becomes CFO, he'll have access to information that could seriously damage your company. My hands curled into fists. Donald wasn't just trying to hurt me personally. He was positioning himself to destroy everything I'd built. I thought about all those nights he'd spent in his home office, claiming to be working on merger documents. Had he been going through my business files instead? Check my home network activity, I told Rachel. Focus on any attempts to access my business servers. While Rachel worked, Sarah made another discovery. Look at these emails between Donald and Amber from 6 months ago. They were planning this before Emma was even walking. Amber wrote, "Once you're CFO, we can use the insider information to push Julia's company out of the market. Uncle Robert says he'll help." I felt sick thinking about how they'd plotted against me while I was caring for our newborn daughter. But their arrogance had made them sloppy. They'd left a trail of evidence that could sink not just Donald's promotion, but the CEO's reputation as well. Rachel's voice cut through my thoughts. Found it. Multiple attempts to access your business servers from Donald's laptop. He didn't get through your security, but he tried. That's corporate espionage. I stood up and walked to the window, watching Emma playing in her playpen with her favorite stuffed elephant. Donald thought he was so clever, using his relationship with Amber to secure his future. But he'd forgotten the most important lesson in business: never underestimate your opponent. Sarah, I turned back to my lawyer, draft an email to the company's board of directors. Include evidence of Donald's attempted corporate espionage and the CEO's involvement in using insider information to target a competitor. Add the security footage of Donald stealing company assets from the lake house. What about Amber? Rachel asked. I smiled grimly. Oh, I think the board will be very interested in how their CEO used a family member to help orchestrate corporate espionage. Don't you? Just as we were preparing to send the email to the board, my phone buzzed with an alert from the lake house security system. Donald was back, and he wasn't alone. Not only was Amber with him, but so was her Uncle Robert, the CEO. They were carrying boxes into the house, more of my belongings, no doubt. Wait, I told Sarah, watching the live feed. Let's see what they're doing first. Through the security cameras, we could see them in the living room. The audio was crystal clear, another feature Donald knew nothing about. They were celebrating, champagne glasses in hand. To the future CFO, Robert raised his glass to Donald, and to my beautiful niece who helped make it all happen. Julia has no idea what's coming, Donald laughed. Tomorrow morning, the board announces my promotion, and by afternoon, our legal team will have control of her company's accounts for audit purposes. Within a month, her business will be worthless. And the best part? Amber chimed in. She thinks the lake house is her biggest problem. Wait until she finds out about the offshore accounts. I froze. Rachel, what offshore accounts? Rachel's fingers flew across her keyboard. Within minutes, her face darkened. Found them. Donald's been funneling money from your joint accounts into offshore holdings for months. Not just Emma's college fund. He somehow managed to divert nearly $300,000. This was bigger than I'd thought. Donald hadn't just been planning to leave me. He'd been systematically stealing from our family for months. The lake house drama was just a distraction from his bigger scheme. But then Robert said something that made my blood run cold. Once Julia's company tanks, our merger goes through smoothly. Her market share will be split between our subsidiaries, and that troublesome ethical business model of hers will be nothing but a memory. My company wasn't just successful, it was disrupting their entire industry with our commitment to sustainable practices and fair labor. This wasn't just about Donald's promotion or his affair. They wanted to destroy everything I'd built because it threatened their way of doing business. Send the email, I told Sarah. But first, add one more thing. Access the backup server, password Emma's birthday, and attach the file marked Insurance. Sarah's eyes widened as she opened the file. It contained years of documentation about questionable practices at Donald's company, information I'd gathered while managing his investment portfolio. I'd kept it as insurance, never thinking I'd actually need it. Julia, Rachel interrupted, staring at her screen. Donald just tried to access our company servers again, from the lake house. He's getting desperate. I watched through the camera as Donald excused himself to the home office. My home office. He sat at my desk, probably trying to hack into my business accounts again. But this time, our IT team was ready. They'd created a false portal, making him think he was succeeding. Let him in, I told Rachel. Let him think he's won. Because in about 10 minutes, that board email goes out, and their whole house of cards comes crashing down. Sarah looked up from her laptop. Email's ready. Should I hit send? I took one last look at the security feed. Donald, Amber, and Robert were still celebrating their imaginary victory. Do it. The response was faster than I expected. Within minutes of Sarah sending the email, Robert's phone rang. Through the security feed, we watched his face turn ashen as he listened to what I assumed was the board's immediate reaction. What do you mean, emergency meeting? He shouted into the phone. Who sent what evidence? Donald grabbed his own phone, presumably checking his email. The color drained from his face. The servers. She knew. Julia knew I was trying to access them. It gets better, I whispered to Sarah as we watched the scene unfold. Wait for it. Right on cue, Amber's phone started blowing up with notifications. Someone had anonymously sent her private Facebook messages to every board member, the ones where she bragged about helping Donald steal corporate information. The security camera caught the exact moment their celebration turned to panic. Robert was screaming into his phone. Donald was frantically trying to close his laptop, and Amber was in tears, mascara running down her face. Then came the coup de grace. Police cars pulling up to the lake house, lights flashing. Turns out corporate espionage and financial fraud are serious crimes. Who knew? I picked up Emma and held her close as we watched through the cameras. See that, baby girl? That's what happens when people underestimate your mommy. The last thing I saw before the feed cut off was Donald being led out in handcuffs, still shouting about how the house was his. The fallout was spectacular. Within 24 hours, Donald and Robert were both fired. The board's investigation uncovered even more than I'd known about, not just the plot against my company, but years of fraudulent practices. Amber's involvement in corporate espionage destroyed her budding influencer career. Last I heard, she'd moved back in with her parents in Ohio. The offshore accounts were frozen and investigated. Every penny Donald had stolen was returned, with interest. The lake house? Turns out attempting to steal company assets is a great way to lose any claim to property. The deed was transferred to my name, where it should have been all along. Donald tried to apologize, sending lengthy emails about how he'd lost himself, how he'd been seduced by power and a younger woman. I never responded. The divorce papers were clear. He lost everything he'd tried to steal, and then some. The evidence of his corporate espionage meant he'd never work in finance again. As for me, my company's ethical business model attracted even more investors after the scandal. We expanded into markets that Donald's company had dominated, our reputation for integrity drawing customers who'd lost faith in traditional corporations. Emma and I spend weekends at the lake house now, making new memories. Sometimes, when I'm sitting on the deck watching her play, I think about Donald's smug email with that photo. He thought he was announcing his victory, but he was really just documenting the beginning of his downfall. I kept that email, by the way. It's framed in my office. A reminder to never underestimate a woman who's built something worth protecting.